What's up,
Hi.
guys? This is Gabriel Gonzalez for Cage Side Press. I am here with one half of the MAJic Hour hosts, and for the past 11 years, she was the Bellator ring girl. Here to talk about her journey and, of course, what's next for her, the gorgeous Mercedes Terrell. Mercedes, how are
Hi.
you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
No, well, thank you. It's been a minute since I saw you live. I think it was in January, and yeah, a lot of stuff has changed for you. First question, because obviously we have a lot to talk about, and of course a nice walk down memory lane. There's
Yeah.
been a couple Bellator events since you made your announcement.
hmm
Were you watching on TV? Were people texting you like, I wish you were here? Or did you try to separate yourself? Like, you officially had your breakup. Now you're not texting them back to get separation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the separation anxiety and issues and all the drama comes flooding. I know. Um, I did watch, and I guess the maybe it makes it a little more easy for me to have this separation at first here is that these couple shows that have passed have been overseas, so I wouldn't have been at those anyway because of what's all going on with COVID and such. So I didn't feel the sting as badly as seeing Bellator with a new girlfriend. But yeah, I mean it was a tough breakup, and it wasn't a breakup. I shouldn't even say that way, because it was a choice that I made and gave them plenty of warning for and all those things. So definitely wasn't about burning the bridge there or any kind of spiteful way I was leaving in any regard. So it was all with my blessings for whatever comes next for them. I'll be supportive there. The people there, I've been with that company for more than a decade, so the people there are literally family members. So I have nothing but good things to say and leave the company on a really high note, because I just have a lot of other stuff that's taken my attention these days.
Yeah, well, I want to get into all that. And certainly, 11 years of Bellator, like we said, there's a lot of stories I think you have from your perspective. But the big question, it's amidst the pandemic. I think people were wondering, well, why not wait till maybe, the end of the year? So, like, new year, new chapter. We know they just announced France, and obviously there would have been fans there to maybe, like, give you your send off. I guess why did you choose the timing? Why now, so to speak?
Well, in this game, as you know, with fighters, any talent really has, I should say, any on-air talent, you can pretty much um, know that they have a contract which has an end. So for me, it was like I kind of knew this was going to be my last, season, which would mean contractually a season with Bellator. I voiced that to them actually last December, that I was thinking this was probably going to be it, and we were working on a whole game plan for what was going to come next for me within the company and all kinds of things like that. Um, but of course, then COVID hit, a lot of change worldwide and all that, and then it came down to when my contract was ending, and I had also started my Onlyfans platform. I had got my hands in a lot of things that were taking up a ton of time, and were really my passions, with the MAJic Hour podcast and all the things I'm involved with. So at that point, it was just kind of one of those things where it was like, to re-sign again makes not really much sense for my life going forward and what I wanted to do, and what I'm doing now. So I just had to make that really tough decision. It was literally really more difficult than I thought it was gonna be. I was lucky enough to have a therapist on hand, because during COVID, this is, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead to one of your questions, but um, during COVID, I took instruction right away. So I think it was March 13th, something like that, was our last fight before COVID hit. And we actually got canceled. We had to cancel the fight because of it. And so we flew home without having had that event, which
And
is
that was
interesting
the
because,
the same day one that they canceled, right?
yeah,
And so you were
yep,
there,
same
you'd
day.
already done weigh-ins, and that's when that.
Yeah, we were there. I was, getting ready for the fights. They were like, "Oh, we're canceling this." And that was a big shocker. Like, damn, this is really serious. And, everybody was very confused at the beginning of COVID, what was really happening and all that. And so I flew home and I took specific instruction from coronavirus, to go inward, go on lockdown and really take that seriously. And what I did was, I, actually, hired a therapist that same week, And then I saw her every week for, of course, I had to do it on Zoom digitally, but I saw her every week for 5 months straight. Well, I'm still seeing her now, during the lockdown. And then I also dream journaled for 5 months straight every single morning. So between those two things, I was doing literally hours of work every day of introspection and, digging up all the shit that's I've been putting to the side because I've been too busy for it all these years. So I think after coming out of that, and Bellator kind of coming back on scene in a more minimal way where we didn't have fans in the stadium and all that, I was just like, where am I now? I'd really reassessed what I wanted for my future, and it just was clear at that point that Bellator will be a part of it in the sense that I will send all my love. I'll watch all the shows. I'll always be a supporter of it. I've been with that brand since the get-go, and I'm proud to have been part of building it. But I also knew it was just time for me to move on.
Was there any significance to the particular show or the date that you signed off?
No, there wasn't. Well, it was just the end of my contract. I mean, that's not that exciting or anything, but I do think it is interesting that the same place that I had the canceled show, which could have potentially been my last show, was the same place that we came back to, and I kind of got to relive. I got to, go all the way through to the fight night and have the final experience and see all the people I've spent so many years with, as far as the Bellator staff and crew and such, and say goodbye, which was tough. I was ugly crying in all the photos. Hopefully those don't ever get released, but they're out there.
Well, you know what? I think the best way, moving forward, you've got your hand in so much stuff, MAJic Hour and everything else. But, if this is like the exit interview, I think it's best to kind of work backwards and, reach us here in 2020. 11 years, 2009. I heard it a little bit on the broadcast, but you found out about the audition for Bellator. They're looking for a ring girl. I mean, I remember you're doing the motocross and you're doing a lot of the automobile mags and all that. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of these types of things went by you at some point. Like, what made you want to audition for Bellator in the first place?
Yeah, I had a manager at the time who was involved in the MMA industry a little bit, and he sent me the ask for the Bellator, Bellator girl trial video or whatever. So they asked to have girls send in videos saying why they would want to be a Bellator girl, et cetera, as a little contest. And so last minute, literally last hour before the due date for those, I was like, I have an hour right now. Let me throw something together. And I made the goofiest, weirdest video probably. And I did it, on whatever the phone of the time was, which was not what it is today when it comes to video quality, and sent that in. And then I had a call from Bjorn Rebney, who was the CEO and founder at the time. And we had a good conversation. And then I talked to some other people from the, the staff of Bellator at the time, and ended up with the gig. And it was really exciting. I didn't know, I mean, I had already been a fan, of MMA, but I didn't, of course, Bellator is brand new, so I didn't know what this company was going to be all about. And then jumped on board. I was really close with the other ring girl that was the first ring girl at the time, Monica, and just started traveling around the country to these tiny shows. Some of our first shows were so small, and when I say small, I don't mean like we didn't have a venue, so to speak. We'd be like in the middle of like a outdoor strip mall, type of situation, and people would just walk up and watch the fights. Like, it was very small family style, run. And then little by little, we kind of climbed the ropes, and now they're obviously where they're at today, which is amazing to see it come this far. And on CBS Sports and everything that's going on now, it's pretty cool. So it was a very fun and interesting beginning. I'll tell you, every single season, I would be like, wonder if we're going to last, and if we're going to be back next season or what, because it was just so new. There was no way to know if we were going to make it, quote unquote, and if I was going to be re-signed for that and that type of thing. And we'd slip questions into the post-fight press conferences, which we were a part of at the time. The Ring Girls were a part of at the time. And we'd slip questions to the MC to ask, like, are you going to have the Ring Girls next year? Like, to try to get answers, like silly stuff. So it was just so cool, though, now looking back on it, to see all that it's come to be. And at the time, again, it was like I was taking a big risk with being with the company, in the sense of I was always having to turn down something else, that was going on then, because I was very fortunate in being extremely active as a model in my career. I've always had a really, luckily, beefed up calendar, I guess you can say, where I had just a lot of work. And so at the time when I had signed with Bellator, I was also signed as Miss Supercross, which was a tour that went around the country, also to Canada. And
for those uninitiated,
it
the
was
motocross bikes, right?
Exactly, motocross bikes. Yeah. So went around with them, and that was like a very intensive week by week show, which Bellator at the time was also a weekly show. So I'd be gone for months at a time from home. I'd like just touch base to repack and get back on the road. And then Bellator decided to switch their dates, what they've just done again, actually, which is interesting, going back to square one with that. And they switched their dates so that it would be on top of Supercross. Essentially, I couldn't make it to both shows. So at that point, I was supposed to be re-signed as Miss Supercross the next year, and I had to go and turn that crown down. And I mean, it was a hard decision, and I ended up, obviously I chose Bellator, and I didn't know if it was going to be the right decision or not, but, and looking back on it, really either way I would have been fine, I'm sure. But I'm super glad, obviously, I went with Bellator and I got to experience what I did. And now I've gone around the world with them and had so many amazing memories. So,
I mean, before we talk about the explosion of Bellator, because anyone who remembers those MTV2 days is shocked when they're saying, like, yo, they're beating the UFC to having fans back in 2020. I think people would be like, nah, that's not possible. I do want to ask you, what do you remember most about that very first show? And more importantly, your very first walk around the cage?
I don't remember strictly my very first show, like with clarity. I do remember it being like an outdoor vibe, and someone might correct me and go like, no, you had already been to a different show somewhere else one day, and I'll be like, you're probably right, because my memory is not excellent. But I do remember, for me, it was largely about getting to know the other girl and, making sure that relationship was fun. And you have to travel with these people. Sometimes you share rooms together. It's a very personal and intimate relationship you build. And I remember the fights themselves. It was thrilling to be that close to the cage. Of course, I'd never been that close to the cage. I'd been to live events before, like UFC events at that time, but I had not ever been able to be that close to all that was going on. And then the fans, like the experience of the fans in the beginnings of Bellator, especially in these situations, was, we were learning how to set up a show and how to make it safe for everybody involved, how to make it, a good experience for the patrons, and all these different things that were just a learning process. So just trying to figure out, okay, how do I navigate this? Am I like, okay, these guys are getting really drunk and really rowdy over here. We're going to make sure the girls sit this far from the cage, and I have this part of my personality as the oldest sister. And, I don't know, I've always kind of played the role of the older sister figure, or mother hen, or whatever you want to call it, when it comes to situations where I'm grouped up with a lot of other girls, especially in promotional modeling. And then, of course, when I was a ring girl, it fit right in too. So I was, I think, trying to just make the situation as safe and well off as possible for everyone involved. So again, it was just, we were all building this thing together. So it was about figuring out what's going to work best going forward. How, there's weird little stuff that probably behind the scenes, no one knows about this stuff unless you've been behind the scenes, but like if you look at the ring card girls cards, if you watch Bellator, you'll notice there's like 2 divots now where the hands rest. That had to come through thinking about how does this work better so we don't have a crooked number when we go up on, you know, the catwalk and that type of thing. The catwalk is now, I think it's almost 4 feet wide. It depends on which cage. We have a few different cages, but one of them, it's about 4 feet wide. That's a pretty wide catwalk. We started with like a 1.5, 2 foot wide catwalk. So, and then you have to remember that all these cameramen have these,
right?
Yeah, stools and stuff that go. And then you have all the photographers and media that lean up against the cage and lean over the cage. So where does a girl walk around a cage on a catwalk if there's only 2 feet of space with a stool that's 1.5 feet wide? You know what I mean? So we'd have to figure out those things. We had to build the cage to be able to walk on it properly without falling off. You know, I've had to jump off before. Someone's pushed me off, you know. So just little stupid stuff you don't think about, of course, unless you're in the scene with us. But
and they took your input. It wasn't just like, oh, you know, the ring girl will figure it out. They asked you guys and you sent the memo like, we need more space to walk, stuff like that.
Let me tell you, that was a struggle in itself. But yes, eventually they started trusting I wasn't out for, I don't know, whatever they might have thought I was out for. Yeah,
like,
I mean,
being a prima donna, just like, she's just asking for more stuff.
Exactly. And I'm sure some of the time they did think that too, but again, I took it as, look, I've just dedicated myself to this brand. I turned down a really big gig over here, and this is like, I'm going to take this seriously now. Here's what we need in order to be more successful at our job. So I guess that's just the way I looked at it. But it eventually, you know, slowly as things do, turned over, and we would create something a little better where something would work better for everybody involved. And we go, okay, that works. Let's keep that. And we go with it. And we, I think, made a really, a place that when people come work with Bellator, they're always go away from it going, wow, like you guys really got your shit together. You got it together more than other organizations out there. And I think in the ring girl experience, that's the same thing. Like, I think ring girls and girls generally are really excited to be a part of Bellator now, because there's a lot of work put into the back end of making that a successful program.
Did you have a perfect walk around the cage the first time? Was there any stumbling?
Definitely had to kick a few photographers out of the way, hold some fighters or cornermen against the cage, you know, like make sure they're not jumping off. No one's paying attention, of course. But yeah, the first walk was successful. I think I've gone up, let's see, my mistakes have been going up with the wrong number. I think once or twice has happened. It's like, you have one job, man. But other than that, it's been, like I said, I've had to jump off the cage because someone was, you know, coming through with something, or I don't even remember the reasons now. And I've definitely almost crushed many media members' glasses and cameras and laptops and all kinds of things they put on the cage. But otherwise, overall, it's been pretty good. Once we got that catwalk widened and figured out, it was pretty solid.
I gotta ask, because I think one of the things about Bellator, and especially, you know, Bjorn Rebney with the tournament format, obviously that was very different to what was going on at that 09, 010 time in MMA. But obviously even later on, you know, they had you guys very active. I think for, you know, this will be for the OG fans. So
yeah,
if you are a pre-Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor era, you may not, or if you're post that, you probably don't remember these days, but they had you and Jade doing the sweet submissions, and people love those on YouTube. I have a clip I want to play because I think this is the one where like the Bellator girls had their breakout. This one went viral. You and Jade, and you're having the pillow fight that's actually being refereed by like Jason Zog.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Smith is like calling it in the room.
It's so good. And Michael C. Williams is announcing it.
Oh my God. I mean, talk to me about this, because obviously like this, I'll just say bluntly, the UFC girls and the others weren't doing this. And I think this was the one that like, hey, you know, when Bellator being the little brother, you guys were a part of showing what was different about it outside of the cage.
Yeah, I think that's something super underrated about, you know, ring girls in general, was how much notoriety we gave to this specific sport and to the company itself, to Bellator. And and not underrated necessarily by Bellator, but just generally by the public. You know, it's not something you think about. Of course, the fighters are everything. You know, they're the talent that makes this thing tick. But there are all these, you know, what do I want to call them? Steadfast talent that are on contract, like all the commentators, like Michael C. Williams, the announcer, you know, like these people, and then of course the ring girls who are going to be there constantly, whereas the fighters, we don't know, you know, their fights come and go, and they go to other organizations, but there's these constants that really make the brand what it is at the end of the day. And as you know, a fan, if you're listening or watching this right now, that's something that I think knowing that and showing support to those people means the world. Like when someone comes and tells me, hey, that thing you did really brought my eye to this brand you were trying to bring attention to, you know, and here's why I loved it, whatever, that speaks volumes to me. I think it makes me feel really like I was in my purpose at that moment, like I was doing the right thing for the company, and I got across the message I was trying to get across. But with this pillow fight specifically, I'll tell you, when Jade and I got together, it was like a either a match made in heaven or a match made in hell. I don't know which way you want to look at it, but it was definitely sprightly. It was volatile. Like we had ideas, and we were not afraid to ask for them or just straight up try them out and be like, you know, throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. I asked for way more things. One of my mottos, and if you ever talk to Jade, she definitely took this away from me, she'll tell you, is ASKGET. So like, you have to ask for what you want or you'll never get it, right? Oh, yeah. And so I was always the squeaky wheel, like, let me ask for this thing and just see what happens, or something comes out of it. And Bjorn and I had a good relationship where he kind of, you know, sarcastically would entertain what I'd have to say, and sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't work. But so in that instance with the pillow fight, we didn't ask anyone's permission besides the people who were in the video, and basically we just went down to, you know, the lobby of whatever hotel we were staying in and said, guys, we got this idea. We want to do a pillow fight, but we want to make it like a real fight. We're going to do the ferryweight division, you know, fight is happening for the title. And, you know, you are going to play this part, you know, you're going to play all your active parts in the cage as you would for a real show, but we're going to do this for social media and it's going to be amazing. And they all said yes. And that I think because one said yes, because Jimmy would always say yes. Like he was like, all right, let's do it. You know, he's always entertaining us. And then everyone else kind of maybe felt the pressure little by little. They all agreed, and we literally went up to, you know, I don't remember, I think it was Manny's room or someone, and we went in and we just decided this thing's going down.
Oh my gosh, that is too funny.
It was a good time.
Yeah, that was a breakthrough. I want to ask you this to set the record straight, because I know you have probably been shared this, asked this, they tag you unnecessarily. I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway for your reaction. Fans always like to do this. Who's better? Who's hotter? The UFC girls, the Bellator girls? Set the record straight. There's no rivalry. There's never been a rivalry. It's just y'all are just doing your thing.
Exactly. It's like, first of all, when you talk about hotness, right, it depends on the person specifically you're asking what the answer is going to be, because everybody has got their own taste, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I know, you know, Ariane, I know these girls are beautiful individuals, genuinely, like as souls, if you want to say. And to try to just base it all on looks is kind of it's a silly thing to do anyway. I get that our job is as a ring girl is obviously largely based on looks. However, it's ridiculous to assume that that's all that is to the person is their looks, right? So I would say that genuinely all these women are extremely beautiful. Of course, I don't know all of them as deeply as I know like a Jade or a Monica, you know, like the girls I got to work extensively with. I know their beauty from the inside out, essentially. So I don't know. You know me. I have nothing but love for all these chicks. So no hate, definitely no hate at all.
We've had this conversation at the MMA awards, and you know. But yeah, for all the people, it's like, you know, was there a rivalry? Guys, there's not a rivalry. There's not like that.
Rivalry. Like no one's ever been like tweeting me, hey, you wish you were as hot as me. No, none of the girls. No one's doing
it's
that.
Like Ariana Celeste, it's like, you wish you were me. Nothing like that.
Not at all. No, we all actually have a pretty cordial and kind relationship in person whenever we do get to see them.
Oh, that's cool.
which isn't now. Unfortunately, we don't have the MMA awards this year and such. It's kind of
That's
crappy.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Obviously that's always a big one for everybody. They invite
Yeah.
everybody, which is always good.
Yeah.
A big question. So those are the old days, and over the years, you guys go from MTV2 to Spike, Paramount, streaming, DAZN, and all things like that. So, and as the years go by, you guys go from the parking lots to, hey, suddenly bigger venues, and it's not just Connecticut. Now you're in Hawaii and Madison Square Garden and Middle East and Europe and all
Yeah.
that stuff going on, and you're along for the ride. And
Yeah.
so my question is, as this goes on, how did you grow as a person? Like, what did, yeah, I'm assuming part of it is just we experience life, but was there anything about the Bellator experience that you could say, you know what, I grew as a person, I grew into, more myself?
Yeah, 100%. I think uh, it was maybe a real blessing to be able to travel in the US first for so long into these very, no insult to the people living there, but some of these podunk towns and very small towns where middle of nowhere.
I think that when you guys go to Thackerville, that's the biggest deal that's ever going on in Thackerville,
It
personally.
might be. It might, what's weird is actually when you go in the Thackerville venue, they have all the biggest stars. They have concerts and comedy shows and everything from stars that you would never expect to be out there because it's just such the middle of nowhere. But I think because that's a casino outside of Dallas, it gets a lot of Dallas love. In any case, though, definitely went to way smaller places than Thackerville. We got hit by a tornado once in, I think it was in Newkirk, Oklahoma, or Concho, Oklahoma.
Like have to get in the basement, or like
Yes, like have to get in the basement, got hit, like the pool was drained, the cars were all beat up by the hail from the tornado. It was a whole Dorothy experience.
did the
But
fight still happen? Like did the event
the
still
fight
go
still
on?
happened.
Oh, wow.
The fights were in a tent that the casino had built for it, which is amazing that it stayed. I don't know how it stayed up. They really know how to build their stuff out there in Oklahoma,
Wow.
I guess. But yeah, so I think going from that first and seeing what it was like there really gave me appreciation when we got to go to some bigger venues, when we, stepping on stage at Madison Square Garden, even as a ring girl and not like, the main event or something like that, is still extremely powerful to be part of a show that is in such a famous and incredible venue. And then, of course, traveling overseas for me was like mind-opening in the sense that just getting to see so many new places. I found a love for the Middle East. That's like my favorite place to travel. And just seeing all there was out there available, plus taking spin-off trips from everywhere we went, which I made a definitely intentional point to do at every stop. When we would travel, we would go take a week after or in between the next fight that's out there in Europe to travel to some other country or some other place and experience as much as we could. So that was incredible for me, like being able to be just really jet setting, I guess, and traveling the world. And I got so many different experiences under my belt specifically because of that. I'm telling you, no sleep, going overseas and being upside down is not good for your body. It's not good for your hormones. You do not do well. And so it takes a lot of recovery, but I knew that it would be limited time that I'd be able to get to do those things. So I just stacked it all on top of one another and made it happen. And now I have a whole book of memories, which I'm really excited to be able to hold on to.
That's awesome. I want to pull up a photo. I mean, what's your reaction when you see
So, I mean, it's super cute. I feel like, first of all, if you take a look at this outfit, so people probably don't know this, but for many years, I had a garment design and manufacturing company called Dirty Birdie Designs.
Oh, wow.
And I made all the Bellator outfits. So I think starting off, we only had t-shirts that they handed us. I was like, this has got to go. And that kind of kick-started me into the, manufacturing business there. And so I did that for Monster Energy and for Corona Boxing, actually, and all kinds of other companies are wearing my garments still to today, actually. But this little Bellator outfit was one of our very, very, very first designs. You can tell because it's got the very old school logo on the front. It's a little more, it's actually a little more covered up than so we got a little sexier as time went on, and then we ended up with pants later. But and then of course in the background you see we got the MTV2 and Spike on the step and repeat. So it just brings me way back to the beginning stages with Jade, with her extra blonde hair.
I was gonna say, it's like, I think new fans might not even realize, it's like, yo,
that's Jade.
She didn't play around when it came to being the blonde one.
Yeah, no, she was like platinum when I first met her. And God, we've grown so much since then. It's so cool to see, like, just the fact that you can make a bond that strong with a person through your job, right? Like, people, I think this is a conversation I was having the other day with someone, but making new friends is really hard as an adult, it feels like.
Yeah.
You know, you said, because you don't show up to the same school every day and, you know, have lunch together or whatever the thing is when you're a kid. That makes it a little easier to make a bond that way. But we spent years on the road together, sleeping in the same rooms together. Sometimes we had separate rooms most of the time, but we would just sleep in the same rooms together anyway, you know, because we had all kinds of what do you call slumber parties or whatever you want to call them. And building a bond with someone so that it's almost like sisterly, you know, and I definitely would consider Jade my sister today, but is something that came out of that was so fortunate for me to be able to experience. It makes me think of like my relationship with Jimmy Smith, who is definitely like a brother to me, and thank God he was there most of the time, because he was like my bodyguard half of the time. Like, walk, Jimmy, you know, I gotta walk back home or back to the hotel and it's gonna be sketchy or whatever. He was always there. So just building those relationships with people because we're on the road together for so much time, I think couldn't have happened any other way than being on that type of show that just tours. And I think anyone who's been on a tour like that probably can empathize or can understand how that works. But it's different than even showing up to an office. You know, an office is a place at least you get to see the same person every day, that type of thing. But not when you're, you know, day from morning to night, you're with these people, you're eating all the meals with them, you're sleeping in the same room, you know, this type of thing. So yeah, that's what that brings back for me, is like where our little beginnings were, her and I, from the get-go.
Well, what I think that might surprise people if you're only watching, you know, you or her in Invicta now, is that you guys, you know, together, you guys have done a lot more than just do a bunch of photo shoots together. Now you guys have built the MAJic Hour. And I think, you know, we've talked about it before in other interviews, so I don't want to rehash it, you know, all the way. But for fans who don't know, you're not just two models who have posed in a lot of bikinis talking about dating and, you know, whatever. You guys have quite the philosophical podcast. You guys talk to a lot of guests about getting very introspective in everybody and things that you could do to help grow yourself as a person. I think the best way to put it, and you have it, I believe, in your bio, you're looking to awaken the modern man. Mercedes, I don't think I'm asleep, but if I were, what should I know?
I don't think you're asleep either, but I would say that, and of course, you know, woke these days is a 4-letter word, right? But right. And so I'd say that when I talk about awakening the modern man, it is really about introspection and about getting really clear with what's going on inside of you before projecting it out onto the world or onto your romantic partner or onto your friends or whatever. And my whole goal is to help men specifically, but anybody else who's willing to come and, you know, look into this as well for themselves is welcome, of course. But men specifically look into how they can, what I call, remember themselves. So when I say remember, break down that word into the different members of our psyche. So the different archetypes that live inside you. So if you're, you know, striving to be a king, the king of your kingdom, there's all these different archetypes that live inside of you, right? The joker, the lover, the warrior, right? The magician, all these parts of you, parts of your psyche that make up who you are. And some of them have been strengthened because of your specific conditioning and domestications to be maybe actually the one sitting on the throne. Maybe for me, it's the magician. It always seems to be jumping on the throne, aka why we have the MAJic Hour. And some people it's the warrior, some people it's the lover, you know, and these archetypes all have different aspects about them, which we obviously get a lot deeper into on the show and with experts in these realms. But for me, it's about helping men remember the king that they really are, and basically aligning their kingdoms so that all the members of their kingdom are realigned, aka remembering, right? And this is how we become a full spectrum human, which allows us to experience things to the apex of human experience, you know, which is, I think, what life's really all about, is being able to have beautiful experience. So for me, yeah, that's what Awakening Modern Man, my goal is to get people to be introspective enough to find all these parts of themselves, identify where they've become imbalanced, and rebalance them, realign them, so that they get to have this beautiful experience that we're calling life, and serve others in that sense alone, just by becoming a better human, you know, a full spectrum human themselves. I know that's a lot of, maybe that's going a lot of directions, is maybe a little woo woo or whatever, but psychology generally, and then the study of hormones, and a few other pieces that I bring all together in my own life philosophy, is what I'm trying to bring to the world through the podcast and through some of my social media platforms. And there's a lot more that's coming in the future that I'm excited about, but I can't really get to yet. So we'll have to interview again a later time to get to all that.
For your buddy, you can't give me the scoop, Mercedes?
Yeah. Well,
I
it's
told
not,
you about
it's
that.
not,
No, I'm joking.
it's not tuned out. It's not.
This is why I talked to you. The fighters can't. I thought you were just like, oh yeah, we're good. I want to bring this up, Mercedes, because I will say this. I've probably been guilty of it before, and not just with your show originally, but several others. And you know, when you look at your profile feed, let's be honest, a lot of people probably know you because they saw you and they think you're gorgeous, and then they follow you on Instagram, and you get even more of that. To say now, like, hey, I'm asking you, don't worry about what I look like, listen to what I'm saying. I think I'm assuming the jump is probably hard to start building an audience that's like, no, you know, we're not talking about me right now. We're listen to what I'm saying. I'm trying to tell you something important. And one of the things I think that doesn't get highlighted enough, but you deserve an A+ for, your marketing of the MAJic Hour. You do not mess around getting people to be interested, to stop, watch, and listen, which brings me to my next question. You've done a great job promoting it, and I think it's because of your alter ego, Mancedes. And, you know, we're going to put some, you know, clips while we talk about this, but you do these skits, and you find a very cheeky and clever way to talk about each week's episode. You've slowed down a bit. I'm assuming it's because you're busy, but the fact is, you know, you do these, you clearly take the time for editing and the production, work the green screen a little bit. I guess, how did this come about? Because I think that I just love it. I'll be honest. I think if more podcasts did that, they would take off. But I think that's such a huge part of why you've been able to bridge the gap. And it's not just, oh, I wanted to hear a bit, but because we're not talking about the superficial, I've tuned out. I think you've done a great job of bridging that gap through the skits. And I want you to talk about that a bit.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you seeing really the bridge that I am attempting to be. That was my dilemma that drove me to, what you're speaking to is the dilemma that drove me to figure out how to, you know, why I made these skits, essentially. Because it is a huge dilemma. You know, I have, of course, this side of me that, with no shame, by the way, something I dissolved, like I was talking about, over the last 5-6 months now, whatever it's been, of quarantine. What is it, 7 months? I don't even know. We're in here too deep. But over this time, that's something I really worked on dissolving, was shame around my own sexuality and my exploration of sexuality, my public persona being a sexual being. And through that work, I have, you know, changed a lot of my direction. But with that, of course, my career as a model, as a ring girl, was very sexy on the forefront, right? This is who you see me as first and foremost. And so your perception of who I'm going to be may come through stereotypes of whatever that persona, that sexy persona, means to the person viewing it. So that's a huge jump, like you're saying, from to what we entered into with the podcast, the MAJic Hour, which was, let's get really introspective. Let's do this on an audio format where you don't even see us, right? And let's talk to psychologists, doctors, experts from all over the world about stuff that's so deep. It's literally, if people put it on a spectrum in the mainstream mind, right? The way that you're entering the interaction with Mercedes is through this like sexy consumerism forefront, and then I'm asking you to take this giant leap to the back end, which is this introspection, deep dive into your own shit. And that might even ask you to ask why you came to me in the first place, and I hope it does. You know what I mean? And not that it's anything to be ashamed of, because sexuality is so primal and necessary. It's a part of our being. But it's also very interesting to see the people who journeyed that bridge directly right away with me. I was like, oh shit, okay, these people get it. The women that were already following me could hold me as a sexual being right away. We're like, we're there, we're with you. The men that were able to, quote unquote, awaken quickly, or were already in that journey, that part of the journey, a lot of them held it, and a lot of them had resistance there, because there's this narrative in our society that says a sexy woman can't also hold this thing, or if you're going to still stay sexy and be in a bikini, you can't tell me about introspection, philosophy, and psychology. You got to put clothes on first. And I'm like, really? Because I just did it. So I can, because I just did it. So that's where, for me, it was like, I want to be the bridge that actually reminds people, not that they can travel from one place to the next, from coming in this sexy consumerism entrance and getting finally to this place that's actually healing, their psychology and got self-healing available for them there. But can they hold both? That's why the whole show, the MAJic Hour, is about, can you explore the gray area? Can you sit with two contradicting ideas? Yes, a sexy woman who wears a bikini can also talk about introspection and get really deep with you, so and maybe even facilitate healing for you at the same time. And I think that's like, not to get too deep into this here, but I think that's what this movement towards a more balanced place, I wouldn't call it like the feminist movement per se, because I think that's got too much negative connotation attached to it. But what we really all want, I think, is a more balanced, existence generally. So yeah, so getting towards this more balanced place is my goal. And I think part of that is us all being able to hold these contradicting ideas, whether it be about a female, a male doing that, whatever. But the fact that, yes, we all are sexual beings. Period. Like, I hope so. I hope we all are. I hope we're all enjoying that beautiful part of the human spectrum and the human experience. And just because you're a sexual being, I can go, well, what else are you offering too? Because I know you have a whole plethora of other parts of the spectrum that makes you you, right? All those things we talked about in your inner kingdom. You're not just the sex god, right? You're also all these other things. And that's what I'm asking people to do in this awakening performance, or this awakening journey. I'm asking people, inviting people to come on with me, is to be able to hold that. Yes, you might have been attracted to my page and what you think I'm all about for this one portion or one aspect of my persona that also lives in whoever's viewing it. And I am asking you to now hold the rest of it at the same time. And I'm not going to put more clothes on or, be less sexual of a creature. I'm going to stay in what I call my wild woman and facilitate the whole conversation, because I think that's what's needed on this planet right now.
Well, like I said,
did I get sidetracked from answering your question?
You know what? I think we got there, but I think the big point is that you saw you needed to do something drastic to bridge that gap. And I think that, if anything, I think it was successful because you do give us the wild woman in a lot of the skits, but you also, yes, but then your sense of humor. I mean, you watch those, it's like all of that together, I think it's probably like finding out, I guess the best way to describe it is if like a female comic. And I think there's the fact that it's like, oh, we've seen Mercedes for so long, and it's like, these are hilarious. They are, they're not the TikTok size, so to speak, but
yeah, they're a little bit bigger.
Yeah, you watch some of these. I was like, it doesn't feature Mancedes, but where you're in the coffin and you're like trying to talk for help.
That's one of my favorites. That didn't get as much play as it should have, man. That was one of my favorite, because that was so simply done, but it was, it got the whole story across. But no, I just will add that you know, Mancedes, where I wear like a beard or a mustache or whatever. I'm dressing as a boy in some of these skits because I need to have a dialogue between two people. And I don't want it to be the I think people get the idea with the MAJic Hour podcast that it's going to be such a femme show because it's me and Jade. You have to remember, Jade and I both come from supporting men. Like our careers are supported by men in a large way. So we want to be able to give back to those same individuals, as well as females, of course. Like I have 5 sisters. Like I love women too.
Wow.
But I'm saying, and I'm the oldest, you know, I'm the older sister. This is like part of my path. But men have been so supportive in my journey in so many ways, and I want to be able to give back in so many ways. Anyway, so with the skits, it was about figuring out how to bridge that gap with something that is entertaining, that I can use my full, you know, creative ability toward. And by the way, I super duper appreciate you saying it's like a female comedy, comic, because that has always been one of my what do you want to call it, like bucket list things. Like I want to be able to do like a stand-up or something. I feel like that takes the most bravery of like anything in the talent spectrum, on air spectrum. But I also wanted to give something that was tangible to the mainstream, to give them an entry point that was like, oh, okay, like if you notice on those skits I use, usually it's like me and something sexy that grabs your attention in the forefront, and then you're like, wait, she's now dressed as a man, you know, having this weird dialogue about whatever, and then introducing something on the podcast that we talked about. But
and you're talking to yourself to add another
yeah,
level.
but literally I'm expressing all those archetypes I talked about earlier, and then trying to do it in a comedic format. And that intensive, why I haven't been doing it lately is because I'm, you know, don't worry, it's coming back, it'll come back. But I've been intensively working on content on another angle right now. But that shit is so taxing. It takes all of me, literally, I put into those skits, because I obviously also film them all myself. Like it's a lot of, you know, a production manager. You're the talent on both sides, you know, you're the writer, the director, all the things. And so it was so groundbreaking for me to take on that task, because I learned how to do all those things, like how to play all those roles, not just the characters I played in the skit, but the behind the scenes people, the director, the manager, the lighting person, you know, and has given me a really amazing a platform to now use on the content I'm building going forward. So thank you for the recognition though there. I think it's one of your biggest skills that I've been able to see in you, is to how you recognize in people what they're attempting to do on a deeper level, because most people just take it for whatever they think it is, but you seem to sit with things like that a little bit deeper and really go, what is she really trying to say to the world? And that's the person I'm trying to call in, you know. So thank you for being that.
Well, thank you. That's very flattering. I appreciate it. As we round third, so to speak, I'd be remiss, because I think a lot of fans are seeing you post about it. I think they want to know what it's about. You have joined the Onlyfans, content creator, and everything else. Very bluntly, I think that let's just get out of the way. What can fans see on your profile? What should they expect when they hit that subscribe button?
Yeah, I think OnlyFans has gotten this.
It's got a reputation, so I want to let you in your. Here she is on video telling you exactly what it is. Let's get it out there.
Yeah, and I don't think, you know, OnlyFans has a reputation for several reasons. Maybe to back it up, from my understanding, OnlyFans started out as basically a platform you could go and speak to anybody from, you know, high-end celebrity, high-end, I don't know, that's a weird way to say it, but you know what I'm saying, A-list celebrity, to really anyone who decided to make a profile there. And you exchange usually money for a subscription or for post openings in order to have some sort of dialogue with them or see their posts, that type of thing. Well, I think with COVID, or how it's been explained to me is with COVID, the, you know, strip clubs all closing down, obviously all the patrons there and all the girls that were working in them needed a place to go to still communicate and, you know, have dialogue with their fans and that type of thing. Well, that's why OnlyFans blew up, right?
Right.
But yeah, and so which is all good too. And by the way, you know, people go to strip clubs, yes, to see naked girls, of course, but they also go to connect with humans on a more intimate level. And sometimes that comes through sexuality on the forefront, like we were talking about earlier. And sometimes it ends with beautiful friendships or, you know, human touch, which is an interesting and very important therapy. So to me, it's like, people want to shame anyone on OnlyFans or want to shame the girls who went there or whatever. And it's like, first of all, if you're shaming anyone, you need to be looking at what's going on in yourself, because it's 2020. It's about to be 2021. Like, shame has left the building. We've moved on. But for me, OnlyFans was like this super just opportunity that arises at the perfect timing, where I just come out of all that shame work, right? And I was literally like the universe going, hey, you want to test it and see how you're doing now? Like, can you really handle all this? And I was like, all right, let's fucking go, you know? And so the first week I got on OnlyFans, I think because I have been so, and you can probably attest to this because you've seen my social media for many years now and how it's grown and what I've changed, like you were speaking to earlier. I have been so dedicated to speaking directly to the people who interact with me on a deeper level in my comment sections, especially on my social media, for many years now, while I've been on this little part of my journey that's about awakening modern man, the introspection piece, all that I have built these relationships through that, which is what social media is really supposed to be for, right? I have built these relationships with many people, largely men, but that were, I think, just at the right timing. When I went over to OnlyFans, they realized they, first of all, were going to come to support me. Secondly, we're finally going to have a place to have a direct conversation with me on a more private format instead of in the comment section. And I was going to have, obviously, the mutual beneficiality of it is I get paid to, you know, unlock posts and subscribers and this type of thing. Actually, my subscription's free. It's mostly about in-post stuff. But anyways, so it gave them the opportunity. In the first week, it blew up so big, it was like a slap in the face, like, shit, I have not been focusing my attention and energy concisely enough. And it just was like a real big, hey, here's where we need to look right now. And what has happened over on my OnlyFans, of course, you're going to see what I do best, right? These sexy photos, these fucking hilarious skits that I'm making, that I am putting over there. These really weird shit that I get into sometimes, and I'm sharing it because it's a place where that's, you know, you're coming to see who the real me is. What
You wanted Mercedes. It's not just the bikinis.
Exactly. What makes this sausage, you know? All the weird shit.
I'm gonna remember that saying.
It was a weird one to use there. That's a perfect example.
Go for it.
Yeah. But so, and then in the DMs, like, this is what blew my mind, is that I went over there like, okay, like, we'll put up some sexy photos. We'll do what all the other girls are doing and see if it works. Boom. First week was like, okay, we need to really look at this. And now, of course, I'm now focusing on that content production, but, and of course, you know me, I'm not going to do it like anyone else does it. I'm going to get all the way weird. I'm going to get into the weeds on every direction, and I just can't help myself. But in the DMs, it has become, for many, almost like a therapy, or like a, you know, place, and for both me and them, like a place where we're having communication on a level that's way deeper than I ever thought could come from social media. You know what I mean? And we're getting into stuff, relationship healing. I mean, it's like we're getting into stuff where I couldn't have ever guessed this would be the direction it would go. And it's just opening up for more of what I'm building for the future. And of course, it's affirming to me to know that my awakening invitation is being accepted by many. And so so many people are crossing that bridge, and I'm just here for it, like, all the way. And I'm just trying to go all the way in right now. So yeah, that is OnlyFans for me is a definite journey where, yes, you can go see sexy photos, you can see the sexiest stuff I've ever posted, and that you would of course expect that from OnlyFans as it's got its reputation publicly. But you can also get on a deeper level with me there. You can also explore all the weird things that I get into, and I'm willing to hold a space with zero shame for anyone who's willing to come there and be vulnerable enough with me to explore their own introspection journey and hold that space for them to do that work. And hopefully also offer them guidance with either, my conversation with them, or I'm recommending books every day. I'm, recommending TED Talks and podcasts and all kinds of shit to people that are open to that type of work. So that's where we're at right now.
I think it's safe to say we get a little bit of everything. Mercedes, what you see on IG, what you hear on MAJic Hour, and just her personal thoughts to her subscribers who are supporting her. I think that's
Exactly.
a way to boil it up. I mean, I love it. I'm assuming, look, you've got the years of Supercross, Bellator. Oh, randomly, that is you I see dancing at the beginning of that one Fast and Furious movie, right?
Yeah.
I remember, what was it? I forget which number it was, but they're at the racetrack, and
like
they got the
7 or
monster
something. Yeah.
girl. Yeah. And it's like, I remember going to the movie theater and I'm like, is that Mercedes?
Yeah. Yeah, that was me.
It's like, it's like, don't get me wrong, we're cool. It was a pleasant surprise, but
Yeah.
it took me out of my experience.
Yeah. My bad. Yeah.
It's all good. But the fact is, you have this built-in fan base that I'm assuming, it sounds like they've come out to support you, and that's really great to hear. Final thing, I guess, what is next? I mean, so now the weeks go by, you don't have to worry about, well, I don't want to say worry, but Bellator is not on your schedule. You have time for other stuff. What is the next thing for you?
Yeah, it is funny you say worry, because I noticed on my first week without having Bellator on my schedule, it was like, oh, like a weight is lifted. For over a decade, I've been on their schedule essentially. And now it is literally, I'm 100%, like I've always considered myself self-entrepreneurial. I come from 2 entrepreneurial parents who work for themselves, the whole deal. But I am literally so low. You know what I mean? There's no contract that I have to be like, okay, well, yeah, I can do all my stuff, but I got to report to this day and make sure I'm at this event, This is like, I just hired on a whole team, recently. I have like a whole production manager. I have all these people that are helping me facilitate my content creation going forward. And I think that's, to answer your question, what it is going forward is just diving deeper into how I can create content that's going to facilitate awakening of modern man. And that will largely be posted, of course, on my paid platforms, but also I'm going to be posting a lot, of course, free, or at least teasing it free, and doing what I can on the free end too. Like the MAJic Hour is, of course, free, and that is one of the most powerful healing tools, not just for Jade and I, but for anyone who decides to listen in. So going forward, it's about focusing on how I can just push more into those directions that I feel really called to and really passionate about, and feel really in service in, So that in a nutshell is where I'll be again. And maybe I'll tell you one of my biggest dreams right now, and of course it changes, it seems, every year to a different level, but right now I am hoping to be able to facilitate an extended platform, I guess I'll call it, to what I have got going on right now, where people will be able to join workshops with me, and maybe it'll be digitally. I don't know what the world's going to allow with COVID and everything, but perhaps digitally, where they can get some one-on-one FaceTime like we're having now, or where I'll basically create these workshops for people to come in and explore these different parts of themselves and remember them and such. So that is where I'm at currently. I've got a lot kind of in the air at the moment, but I'm excited to see where it all settles to.
I mean, that's awesome. I look forward to it. I think that anyone who's listened to this can see that, look, you are getting somebody who's legit and serious about sharing these ideas and helping people with it. So I think that's a great platform and a great endeavor. I'm looking forward to it. As we round home, let's go ahead and bring it back a little bit. Technically speaking, you are still part of the MMA world. I think you are still one of the nominees for Ring Girl of the Year. I gave you my vote, so good luck.
Appreciate it.
For you. I think that we're going to have an upset finally. Just gonna say. But you know what? I think the best way for me to ask him my final question, and we touched on this a little bit, but ring girls, like fighters, like reporters, like pretty much anyone in the space, we're kind of
Yeah.
like flavors of ice cream. People have their favorites for any different reason, and you're not gonna sway them otherwise. What is your message to the Mercedes Terrell fans who always went out there and said, you know what, Mercedes Terrell is my favorite. She's number one to me.
Oh God, that's a good question. And I do agree that, like we talked about earlier, everyone is going to have their own preferences because of their own domestications. And the first thing I would ask you to ask, which is maybe ridiculous and cliche sounding at first, but just sit with it, is why do you feel that way? Like, what is it inside of you that draws you to me? You know what I mean? What makes me your favorite? And so that's what I would ask anyone who is favoriting in the first place. But and by the way, thank you if that is the case, and thank you for your support, because it has literally been what has allowed me to be in the space I am and doing the work I think is what I'm called to do. So I have all the gratitude in the world for you, and I hope I get to express that to you either in person or, you know, via digitally through one of my platforms. But I will also say that if you can sit with things like that little question I just asked you, like, why am I your favorite, and really get down to the root of it, and then we can have a conversation about that, you are awakening the way I'm hoping for. You are doing the work, because that is work, right? Like, that's like taking a little more time than you wanted to spend on that question. That's the work that I'm hoping to ask people to do. Just look inward. And so anyone who's been on this journey with me thus far, anyone who's supported me thus far, kind of knows I'm probably asking them to do a little bit of work, but it's going to be for their own benefit in the end. So yeah, that's what I that's a weird answer, right? That's a
It's a
super weird
very
answer.
Mercedes answer.
I'm
And I think
sorry.
I wouldn't want it any other way. Just want to say, just congratulations on an amazing run. Everything MAJic Hour, everything that's just exploding for you. We'll certainly do interviews again, but I really felt like this would probably be the only time where it's appropriate to be like, let's look back on Bellator, let's talk about the transition, and obviously let's get excited for what's next. So I really thank you for all your time today.
I appreciate you saying that, and I will miss, I mean, that's the hardest thing, is getting, you know, letting go of that chapter. And it's always been a pleasure seeing you there as well. I've expressed this to you before, but I do think you're one of the best in the business, Gabriel. And I think that your effort that you put towards the work is really apparent in the questions you ask and the journalism you perform. And it's not easy, dude. It's not easy. So I really applaud you for it. Keep at it. I know we've had these conversations before, but that's important stuff. And you are providing not just entertainment, but some insight into stuff that can really, I mean, like, you're getting into these fighters' heads, you're getting to the information that makes people go, hey, like, this guy became a champion because of this, that, and the other. How do I also follow that, you know, and allow that to be a light for me? So you're such a light in that way. I appreciate you.
Hey, thank you very much. That's very flattering. Guys, we'll have Mercedes, all the links to follow Mercedes, social media and everything else in the box below. Until then, thanks again for the time, Mercedes, and we'll
Sure.
be back for the next one.